Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is VAWC of Law and I'm Attorney Aljumrani. It's March 30, 2021 and we still made it to the Women's Month. And in celebration of the Women's Month, in today's video I will talk about Republic Act 9262 or the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act. So what is Republic Act 9262? It is a law passed by Congress on March 8, 2004. It was signed into law by then President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. The law seeks to address the acts of violence against women and children and abuses on women and their children by their intimate partners in any of the following situations. First, husband and wife situation. They are legally married, or they are married but legally separated, or they are married but separated de facto. Also, ex-husband and ex-wife relationship. They were formerly married but their marriage was terminated through annulment or nullity of marriage. Next is live-in partner relationship. So here they are not married, their relationship is romantic or sexual. The union may be without legal impediment, meaning they could marry but they just don't want to marry. Or the relationship may be illicit, such as when one or both of them are already married. Now, another relationship contemplated by the law is the boyfriend and girlfriend relationship. Here they are in a romantic and or sexual relationship but not living together in the same house. And even if they live in each other's houses occasionally, there is no intention to live together permanently. Otherwise, they would fall under the live-in partner relationship. The next relationship is the ex-boyfriend and ex-girlfriend situation. They were formerly in a romantic and or sexual relationship and they could either be cordial or not. Now, another situation contemplated by law is the dating relationship. Here, the man and the woman are going out because they are romantically and or sexually interested in one another. The intention must be to court the other to enter into a serious relationship, and friendly or non-intimate dates are not included. An ex-dating relationship, on the other hand, is a situation where they were formerly going out because they were romantically and or sexually interested in one another. The intention must have been to court the other to enter into a serious relationship, but this does not include friendly or non-intimate dates. Question: is same-sex relationship covered? Yes, but only those relationships between a woman and another woman. Same-sex relationships between a man and a man cannot be covered by the anti-VAWC law because the victim under anti-VAWC law is a woman. Now, is one-night stand covered? It depends. If the one-night stand is attended with romance and intimacy, then it is covered. But if the one-night stand is with a prostitute for paid sex and not romantic or intimate in nature, it is not covered. Any violence committed against a prostitute in a non-romantic and intimate situation may be prosecuted under the revised penal code. Now, let's talk about the child as the victim, because the law speaks of violence against women and their children. So, the child as a victim under the law is a common child of the offender and the victim, or the child could be the woman's child or the victim's child. So what is violence against women and children? Under Section 3A, Republic Act 9262, it is any act or a series of acts committed by any person against a woman who is his wife, former wife, or against a woman with whom the person has or had a sexual or dating relationship, or with whom he has a common child, or against her child, whether legitimate or illegitimate, within or without the family abode, which results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, psychological harm or suffering, or economic abuse, including threats of such acts, battery, assault, coercion, harassment, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty. Now, these acts are just examples. We will talk about the specific acts as stated in the law. So, what acts are deemed violence against women and children? First, physical violence refers to acts that include bodily or physical harm. Sexual violence speaks of an act which is sexual in nature, committed against a woman or her child. It includes, but is not limited to, the following: rape, sexual harassment, acts of lasciviousness, treating a woman or her child as a sex object, making demeaning and sexually suggestive remarks, physically attacking the sexual parts of the victim's body, forcing him to watch obscene publications and indecent shows, or forcing the woman or her child to do indecent acts and or make films thereof, forcing the woman and mistress or lover to live in the conjugal home or sleep together in the same room with the abuser. In other words, perversion. Okay, next, acts causing or attempting to cause the victim to engage in any sexual activity by force, threat of force, physical or other harm, or threat of physical or other harm or coercion. In other words, unwelcome sex. And lastly, prostituting the woman or child. So all these acts are sexual violence. Now, psychological violence are acts or omissions causing or likely to cause mental or emotional suffering of the victim. It includes intimidation, harassment, stalking, damage to property, public ridicule or humiliation, repeated verbal abuse, and mental infidelity. Also, causing or allowing the victim to witness the physical, sexual, or psychological abuse of a member of the family to which the victim belongs. Also, causing or allowing the victim to witness pornography in any form, or to witness abusive injury to pets, or to unlawful or unwanted deprivation of the right to custody and or visitation of common children. Imagine the trauma not having to visit your children, or the trauma of seeing your pet being abused or hurt by the abuser or the offending party. Now, what's economic abuse? Economic abuse refers to acts that make or attempt to make a woman financially dependent, which includes but is not limited to the following: withdrawal of financial support, or preventing the victim from engaging in any legitimate profession, occupation, business, or activity, except in cases wherein the other spouse, partner, objects on valid, serious, and moral grounds as defined in Article 73 of the Family Code. If you've studied the Family Code, you will know that the husband and the wife may pursue their own respective professions or vocations, but the husband can object on moral grounds. And in case of disagreement or dispute, then the wife can go to court and seek judicial redress. So the same principle and rule applies in VAWC. Also, economic abuse may be in the form of deprivation or threat of deprivation of financial resources and the right to the use and enjoyment of the conjugal, community, or property owned in common. Also, destroy household property and controlling the victim's own money or properties, or solely controlling the conjugal money or properties. So let's look at some selected decisions of the Supreme Court. In Jaime Araza versus People of the Philippines, decided last September 2020, and the topic or the issue is moral infidelity, the Supreme Court held that the marital infidelity of the husband, if it is the proximate cause of the wife's emotional anguish and mental suffering, is a form of psychological violence. Also, in the case of AAA versus BBB, decided last January 11, 2018, and the issue was marital infidelity committed abroad, the Supreme Court held that even if the alleged extramarital affair causing the offended woman or wife mental and emotional anguish is committed abroad, the same does not place a prosecution under RA 9262 absolutely beyond the reach of Philippine courts. Next is the case of Esteban Donato Reyes versus People of the Philippines, decided last July 3, 2019 on financial support. Here, the Supreme Court held that depriving a woman or her child of financial support to which they are legally entitled to is both a form of psychological violence and economic abuse under Republic Act 9262. Next is Dolina versus Vallecera, decided December 15, 2010 on the issue of requisite to entitlement to financial support. Here, the Supreme Court held that to be entitled to legal support, petitioner must, in proper action, first establish the filiation of the child if the same is not admitted or acknowledged. So that is the burden of proof of the complainant in VAWC or any other case which involves legal support or which seeks legal support from a purported father of the complainant's child. Next is Gotan versus Tan, decided last September 30, 2008 on the issue of conspiracy to commit VAWC. So here the Supreme Court held that the parents-in-law of the victim were held to be proper respondents in the case filed by the latter upon the allegation that they and their son, Gotan's husband, had community of design and purpose in tormenting her by giving her insufficient financial support, harassing and pressuring her to be ejected from the family home, and in repeatedly abusing her verbally, emotionally, and mentally and physically. Alright, so let's talk about the specific acts and their prescriptive periods. So, according to Republic Act 9262, acts falling under Section 5A to 5F shall prescribe in 20 years. So, what are these acts under Section 5A to 5F of Republic Act 9262? First is causing physical harm to the woman or her child. Next, threatening to cause the woman or child physical harm. Also, attempting to cause the woman or her child physical harm. Next is placing the woman or her child in fear of imminent physical harm. Next is attempting to compel or compelling the woman or her child to engage in conduct which the woman or her child has the right to desist from, or desist from conduct which the woman or her child has the right to engage in, or attempting to restrict or restricting the woman's or her child's freedom of movement or conduct by force or threat of force, physical or other harm or threat of physical or other harm, or intimidation directed against the woman or child in the following: threatening to deprive or actually depriving the woman or her child of custody to her or his family, depriving or threatening to deprive the woman or her children of financial support legally due her or her family, or deliberately providing the woman's children insufficient financial support, or depriving or threatening to deprive the woman or her child of a legal right, preventing the woman in engaging in any legitimate profession, occupation, business, or activity, or controlling the victim's own money or properties, or solely controlling the conjugal or community property or properties. Now, the last act or offense which will prescribe in 20 years is inflicting or threatening to inflict physical harm on oneself for the purpose of controlling her actions or decisions. Now, the acts falling under Section 5G to 5I shall prescribe in 10 years. So what are these acts that must be filed within 10 years from their commission? So first is causing or attempting to cause the woman or her child to engage in any sexual activity which does not constitute rape by force or threat of force, physical harm, or through intimidation directed against the woman or her child or his immediate family. Engaging in purposeful, knowing, or reckless conduct, personally or through another, that alarms or causes substantial emotional or psychological distress to the woman or her child, such as stalking or following the woman or her child in public or private places, peering in the window or lingering outside the residence of the woman or her child, or entering or remaining in the dwelling or on the property of the woman or her child against her or his will. destroying the property and personal belongings, of inflicting harm to animals or pets of the woman or her child, and engaging in any form of harassment or violence. Now, the last act or offense that should be filed within 10 years from commission is causing mental or emotional anguish, public ridicule, or humiliation to the woman or her child, including but not limited to repeated verbal and emotional abuse and denial of financial support or custody of minor children of access to the woman's child or children. So what are the penalties for violation of Republic Act 9262? There's the imprisonment, and imprisonment for a minimum period of 1 month to as long as 12 years depending on the specific act committed. Acts constituting attempted, frustrated, or consummated homicide, murder, or parricide shall be punished in accordance with the revised penal code. There's also a fine, and the fine is not less than 100,000 pesos to as much as 300,000 pesos. Now let's talk about protection orders. A protection order is an order prescribed by law to prevent further abuse of or violence against a woman and her child. It also provides the victim relief from said abuse or violence. So what are the types of protection orders? So we have Barangay Protection Order or BPO, Temporary Protection Order or TPO, and Permanent Protection Order or PPO. Examples of protection orders are prohibition against committing further acts of violence, removal or exclusion of the offender from the conjugal residence, order to stay away from residence, school, place of employment, and other places frequented by the victim, granting custody over a child, and payment of actual damages. So who may apply for protection orders? First, the offended party, and in her absence or if she's not willing to cooperate, then the parent or guardian, grandparents, children and grandchildren, relatives such as aunts, uncles, cousins, in-laws, local officials and DSWD social workers, police, lawyers, counselors, therapists, healthcare providers, or any two people who come from the same city or municipality and who have personal knowledge of the crime can file the action or the petition or request for protection orders for and on behalf of the offended party. So where do you file or request protection orders? Well, the punong barangay in case of physical violence, or before the courts in all other forms of violence against women and children. It may be filed as an independent action or as an incidental relief in any civil or criminal case the subject matter or issues thereof partakes of a violence as described in Republic Act 9262. So what is the validity of protection orders? If it's a BPO or Barangay Protection Order, then it's valid for 15 days from issuance. If it's a Temporary Protection Order or TPO, then it's valid for 30 days. A Permanent Protection Order is valid forever. I mean, it's permanent and perpetual unless revoked upon application of the victim. So that's it, guys, for my short video on Republic Act 9262 in celebration of the Women's Month. Remember, women's rights are human rights and women deserve equal protection. So I hope you learned something from this video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed yet, and please click that notification bell so that you will be notified in case I upload a new video. So I'll see you in my next video. Laging tatandaan, isip ay buksan, alamin ang batas.